On Thanksgiving morning, my phone rang. A banker asked me to confirm a $6 million transfer arriving Monday into an account in my name. I froze, hands covered in pie dough. I hadn't opened any account. Half an hour later, my husband announced he was selling the house for his mistress. So I stood up too, holding an envelope I had kept for 3 weeks. Are you done? Because now it's my turn. My name is Addie Rivera, and this was the Thanksgiving I finally served my husband what he deserved. The scent of thyme and melted butter, the kind that only happens once a year, filled our Maple Bridge home. It was the smell of stability, of tradition, my grandmother's heavy china. The set with the tiny gold rim and the fragile painted wheat stalks was spread across the dining table. I only ever trusted myself to hand wash these plates. This ritual, this meal, was my anchor. My son, Evan, who was 23 and already looked too much like a Boston professional in his crisp button-down, was home. He was laughing, a deep, full sound that I'd missed terribly, telling a story to his sister. Lily, at 20, was all nervous energy and new ideas. Home from her dorm and vibrating with tales of her first serious internship. They were good kids. They were the reason I basted the turkey every 45 minutes. The reason I insisted on real cranberry sauce, not the canned jelly Brent preferred. This was supposed to be a happy day, a brief, warm bubble where we were all just a family, safe under one roof. I was finishing the gravy, whisking out the last of the lumps, when my phone buzzed on the granite countertop. I ignored it. It was Thanksgiving. It buzzed again, insistent. "Mom, are you going to get that?" Lily called from the dining room, where she was carefully pouring sparkling cider into the good crystal. With a sigh, I wiped my hands on my apron and glanced at the screen. A number I didn't recognize. Probably a spam call trying to sell me an extended car warranty. I answered with a clipped, "Hello. May I speak with Mrs. Addie Rivera?" The voice was female, professional, and had that specific neutral tone that bankers use. "This is she," I said, turning the heat down under the gravy. "Mrs. Rivera. My name is Janice, calling from the Corporate Compliance Department at Pioneer Atlantic Bank. We are just doing a final verification before the holiday weekend." I frowned. I didn't bank with Pioneer Atlantic. "I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number. We're about to sit down for dinner." "Ma'am, our records show you as the primary officer for an entity named Lawson Urban Holdings, LLC. Is that correct?" The whisk in my other hand stilled. The kitchen, moments before filled with the sounds of family, went utterly silent in my head. What was the name again?" "Lawson Urban Holdings, LLC," she repeated, patient as a machine. "We are calling to confirm the incoming wire transfer scheduled for this coming Monday. It's a rather large sum, so we're required to verify with the account holder directly. The transfer is for $6 million, originating from a private source in Florida. We just need your verbal confirmation that you are expecting these funds." $6 million. My blood ran cold, then hot, then cold again. My hand, the one holding the phone, was slick with sweat. I could feel the heat of the stove on my left, but my right side was frozen. LLC, Lawson, Florida. I looked through the cutout in the wall, into the living room. Brent, my husband, was reclined in his armchair, feet up, completely oblivious to the gravy now threatening to burn. He was texting, a wide, giddy smile splitting his face. It was a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months, maybe longer. His thumbs were flying, that secretive, hunched-over posture that I had willfully misinterpreted as just work. I turned my back to him, facing the stainless steel refrigerator, forcing my voice to remain level. I was a program manager at a community outreach. I handled budgets, coordinated grants, and dealt with difficult people for a living. I could handle this. "Janice," I said, my voice sounding impressively calm. "There must be a significant error. I am not aware of any such account or transfer. I am in the middle of hosting a holiday, and I can't address this right now. Ma'am, the account was opened with your social security number and driver's license. The floor dipped. He had used my information. Send me everything, I said, the words sharp and sudden. Every piece of paperwork associated with this LLC and this impending transfer, but do not send it to the email you have on file. Send it to a different address. I gave her my personal, private email, the one Brent didn't know existed, and I will have my lawyer review it first thing tomorrow morning. Of course, Mrs. Rivera, I will note that you are disputing the account. We will place a temporary hold on the incoming funds pending your lawyer's review. Thank you. I hung up without saying goodbye. My heart was a trapped bird against my ribs. $6 million, a shell corporation in my name. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the smell of thyme and sage suddenly making me nauseous. I looked at my hands. They were shaking. Mom, is everything okay? Evan called. Peering into the kitchen, I manufactured a smile. It felt like cracking porcelain. Fine, honey. Just a work thing. You know how the end-of-year grants are. Go ahead and start carving. Tell your father to come to the table. I poured the gravy into the boat. My movements stiff, automatic. I set the potatoes on the table. I sat down. I watched as Brent finally put his phone away, rubbing his hands together. All right, this looks incredible. Addie, really incredible. The meal began. For 10 minutes. It was almost normal. Evan praised the stuffing, the one I make with sausage and chestnuts. Lily described a nightmare professor in her internship, making Evan laugh. I watched them, my children, blissfully unaware that the foundation of their lives was actively crumbling beneath the dining room table. I tried to participate, to nod, to smile, but my mind was a frantic split-screen Lily story on one side, and the words, Lawson Urban Holdings, and $6 million flashing in red on the other. I planned to get through this. I would smile through dessert, pack up the leftovers, and then, after the kids went out to see their old high school friends, I would confront Brent. I would handle it. But Brent didn't wait. He cleared his throat, tapping his knife against his water glass. It was his boardroom sound, the one he used when he was about to share a new directive. Evan and Lily quieted down, looking at him expectantly. I just want to thank everyone for being here, Brent started, looking around the table, but not quite at me. It's been a year of a lot of changes, a lot of growth, and with that growth comes new opportunities. I felt the acid rise in my throat. This was not a toast. As you know, I've been working on some new developments, and things are finally moving forward in a big way. He gave that giddy smile again, the one from the armchair. And because of that, I've made an executive decision. I'm going to be putting this house on the market. Lily's fork clattered onto her grandmother's china. What, Dad? What are you talking about? Evan just stared, his face hardening. You're selling the house, our house. Brent held up a hand, like he was calming a restless boardroom. Guys, it's for the best. It's time for a new chapter. I'm going to be moving in with Sienna and her 3 kids, and her place just isn't big enough for all of us. The silence that followed was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the dishwasher humming in the kitchen. Evan and Lily just stared, mouths open. Their faces were a mirror of identical confusion. Who is Sienna? Lily whispered, looking from him to me. Brent had the audacity to look impatient. Sienna Blake. I've been seeing her. It's serious. He said it so plainly, so factually, as if he were announcing he was switching cable providers. He was dismantling our 44-year-old life in front of our children on Thanksgiving, and he couldn't even be bothered to look ashamed. The shock on my children's faces, their raw, blindsided pain, snapped something in me. The bank call, the LLC, the $6 million. This wasn't just an affair. This was a hostile takeover. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, a sound that cut through the frozen quiet. All eyes turned to me. Brent looked annoyed, as if I had interrupted his presentation. I walked, very slowly, out of the dining room and into the kitchen. I didn't go to the sink. I didn't get a glass of water. I went straight to my handbag, the one I'd left on the counter by the coffee maker. I opened it. I reached inside, past my wallet and my keys, and pulled out a thick, standard-sized white envelope. It had been in my bag, waiting, for 3 weeks. I walked back into the dining room. Brent was still standing at the head of the table, a smear of gravy glistening on the tablecloth where he'd just spilled it. I placed the envelope directly on the gravy stain. Brent looked at the envelope, then at me. Confusion replacing his confidence. "Since you're issuing press releases," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Here's my statement. The air didn't just get cold, it turned to ice." The blood drained from Brent's face. He looked at the envelope, then at my eyes. And for the first time all day maybe, for the first time in our entire marriage, he looked terrified. I didn't wait for him to open it. I pulled my chair back out. I sat down. I picked up my knife and fork. My mouth tasted like ash, like bitter metal. But I calmly cut a piece of turkey. I lifted it, my hand perfectly steady. And I took a bite. I was not going to be the one to leave this table. I was not going to be the one who ruined Thanksgiving dinner. I chewed. I swallowed. And I looked at my children. In my head, the timeline was already rewinding, the pieces clicking into place. The call from the bank wasn't the beginning, it was the end. The beginning. The beginning was 8 months ago. It started, as these things so often do, back in March. My mind detached from the scene at the table. The metallic, savory taste of the turkey turned to copper in my mouth. I was looking at my husband's pale, terrified face, but I was seeing a reel of the last 8 months play out behind my eyes. This wasn't a sudden implosion. It was a subsidence. The ground beneath our marriage hadn't given way all at once. It had been eroding slowly. Starting last March, Brent, who for 24 years had been a solid, predictable, almost boring commercial realtor, suddenly started using a new vocabulary. He became obsessed with a new venture he called the Brookmont Project. It was all synergy, leveraging private capital, and urban revitalization. His explanations were vague and slippery, full of buzzwords that seemed designed to deflect follow-up questions. He talked about private partners from Florida, which struck me as odd. Brent's world was Maplebridge. His partners were local guys named Dave and Mike, men I'd known since Evan was in diapers. Our life, once a shared calendar, began to fork. Friday date nights, our one non-negotiable ritual, became the first casualty. "Addie, I have to take the Charlotte investors out," he'd call, his voice already distant, preoccupied. "Big dinner, rain check. Another time." "Sorry, babe. This Brookmont meeting is running until midnight. The Florida group is only in town for one night. Don't wait up." The lies were lazy. He was arrogant. He said he was in Charlotte, but the joint Amex bill told a different story. The charge wasn't for an airline or a hotel 2 states away. It was for Chez Pascal, an obscenely expensive French restaurant downtown. The kind of place with white tablecloths and single-stem roses. A place he hadn't taken me in a decade. The midnight investor meeting was a $200 bar tab at the Cypress Lounge, a sleek hotel bar known for high-end cocktails and low, intimate lighting. He wasn't just having an affair. He was funding it from our joint account. I work at Ridgewell Community Outreach. I manage programs that help seniors get hot meals and keep teenagers in after-school programs. It's work that matters, deeply, but it doesn't come with a Chez Pascal expense account. What it does come with is stability. I am meticulous. I pay every bill on the 10th of the month. I have never, not once, carried a credit card balance in a life spent managing grants and community budgets. I had built one thing Brent apparently coveted more than my loyalty: a perfect, spotless, 800-plus credit score. I was an ideal target. I just hadn't realized I was his target. The real shift, the moment my passive suspicion hardened into cold certainty, came in May. Lily was home from college for the weekend. We were on the sofa, sharing a bowl of popcorn, watching some mindless comedy. "Had the weirdest thing happened today," she mumbled around a kernel. "I was at the mall picking up a birthday gift for Sarah. And I'm pretty sure I saw Dad. I kept my eyes on the television. Oh, was he grabbing something for me? I don't think so. He was in the food court with this woman. She had really bright red hair and two little kids, like toddlers. She laughed, a small, uncertain sound. He was wiping one of their faces with a napkin. They looked really familiar. Not like, I know them familiar, but like a family. He looked like their dad. She shook her head. Must have been a client. Right weird. A block of ice formed in my stomach. Must have been, I said, my voice impressively light. Pass the salt. Brent didn't do clients with toddlers. Brent didn't particularly like toddlers, not even his own when they were that age. That night, long after Lily had gone to bed, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling. A redhead, two small children, a family. I stopped being a wife in denial and became an investigator. I started quietly, checking our finances online. The first anomaly was the mortgage. I managed the automatic payments from our joint checking. I logged into the bank portal and saw something new. The loan, which had always been listed under B. Lawson A. Rivera, now had a new designation. The primary debtors were listed as Ban Lawson A. Rivera Lawson. I dropped my hyphenated name 15 years ago. It was a hassle, and Rivera was my identity, my career. Someone, Brent, had clearly accessed our mortgage documents and legally relinked my old professional name to our primary asset. Then, I found the email. It was buried deep in my spam folder, dated 6 weeks prior. The subject line read, "Action required your electronic signature for Lawson Holdings." I'd seen it before and dismissed it as a sophisticated phishing attempt. Now, my heart hammering, I opened it. It was a digital certificate from a secure signature service. Thank you for signing the operating agreement for Lawson Urban Holdings, LLC. It had been electronically signed, with my name. I checked my calendar for that date. April 17th, a Tuesday. Brent had told me he was spending the entire day at a commercial zoning seminar across the river. He had been home. He had been at his desk in our shared office, 10 feet from where I slept, methodically stealing my identity. The other signs were just noise, an insulting, stereotypical smokescreen. He joined Equinox, the expensive gym with the eucalyptus-scented towels. He bought new shirts, slim fit, European cuts that looked faintly ridiculous on a 45-year-old man. He started wearing a new cologne, a sharp, aggressive, musky scent that clung to his clothes and gave me a dull headache. Those were the signs of a man having a garden-variety midlife crisis. I could have weathered that. We could have yelled, gone to therapy, divided our assets, but the new gym clothes and the secret texts were just a distraction from the real crime. The real betrayal wasn't in his phone. It was in his briefcase. I found it when I was looking for a stamp. It was an invoice from Kerrigan Strauss, a high-priced commercial law firm I'd never heard of. It was for $8,000. The line item read, "Consultation and Entity Formation Services." That was 3 weeks ago. That was when I stopped being angry and started being methodical. I went to an office supply store and bought a single, high-capacity flash drive. I started taking screenshots. I photographed the lawyer's invoice. I downloaded and printed the Amex statements with Chez Pascal and the Cypress Lounge. I saved a PDF of the e-signature confirmation from my spam folder. I pulled my own credit report, and there it was, sitting like a time bomb, a hard inquiry from Pioneer Atlantic Bank in May, an entity I had never heard of. Accessing my credit, the envelope I'd just placed on the gravy stain, that was my file, my evidence. I had assumed, naively, that he was just siphoning money for his new life. I thought he was trying to leverage our house to buy a condo for his redhead. The call from the banker this morning, the one about Lawson Urban Holdings and $6 million, proved I had been thinking far too small. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was stealing me, my signature, my credit history, my legal standing. He was building an entire real estate empire, and I was the unwilling guarantor. That $6 million wasn't a windfall. It was a liability. It was the price of my entire future, a future he was planning to spend with Sienna and her 3 children, in a house built on the foundation of my good name. The call from the bank wasn't a random error. It was the final, critical piece of the last 8 poisonous months, clicking definitively, and loudly, into place. The day after Thanksgiving was a blur of frantic, whispered phone calls. I told Brent I was going to an all-day budget review at Ridgewell, a lie that slipped out with terrifying ease. He was too busy fielding hushed, angry calls in his office to notice. Evan and Lily had fled the house, staying with friends, their last texts to me simply reading, "Are you okay, Mom? And we love you." I was not okay, but I was focused. At 11 a.m. on Friday, I walked into the downtown Maple Bridge branch of Pioneer Atlantic Bank. It was all glass and cold marble, a temple of corporate indifference. I had called Janice, the compliance officer, at 8:01 a.m. and demanded an in-person meeting. She had agreed instantly, her voice tight with professional concern, and set me up with the branch's business loan manager, Elena Alvarez. Elena was sharp, impeccably dressed, and had the kind of reassuring, competent demeanor that made you feel safe signing on the dotted line. Today, her face was a mask of careful neutrality. She led me to a glass-walled conference room, set a thick, bound file on the polished table between us, and folded her hands. "Mrs. Rivera," she began, her voice low. "Thank you for coming in. As you can imagine, your call yesterday raised significant flags for us. This is the complete file for the Lawson Urban Holdings application." She pushed the file, a solid 2 inches thick, across the table. My name was on the tab. I opened it. The first page was the LLC formation document. There was my name, Addie Rivera, listed as sole member and director, an entity I had never heard of, formed in April, and I was its only officer. My stomach twisted. He hadn't just added my name to his business. He had made me the business. All liability, all risk, pointed directly at me. The contact email listed under my name, however, was Brent's personal Gmail. "He made me the firewall," I murmured, my fingers tracing my own name. "I beg your pardon," Elena asked. "Nothing. Please, continue." Elena turned a page, her expression clinical. "Here is the primary application for the commercial line of credit. As you can see, it's a 7-figure loan, intended for the purchase and initial development of a land parcel." She pointed to a line item. "Project Purpose West Orchard Residential Development." The name hit me, West Orchard. It sounded so pleasant, so domestic. "This loan," Elena continued, "was provisionally approved, contingent on 2 factors. First, the personal guarantee of the LLC's director, which is you. Second, the successful transfer of capital from your investment partners. The bank approved the structure based on the combined financial strength of you and Mr. Lawson, specifically your exceptional credit history." She slid another document across. It was the personal guarantee, and there, at the bottom, was my signature. I stared at it. It was a perfect forgery. It was fluid, confident, and absolutely my handwriting. Except for one, critical, arrogant mistake. It was the signature, Addie Rivera Lawson. I hadn't signed my name that way since Lily was born. I had legally and professionally dropped the hyphenated Lawson 15 years ago. It was the signature on our original mortgage, the one on our 20-year-old joint tax returns. Brent hadn't just forged my name. He had copied it. Lifting it from an old document he must have fished out of our files, completely oblivious to the fact that I had evolved while he remained static. "This is not my signature," I said. My voice was a flat, dead thing in the quiet room. Elena Alvarez did not flinch, but her posture stiffened. She had clearly expected this. "We understand that is your position, Mrs. Rivera. That is why compliance froze the account. And the $6 million the transfer from Florida. That is the second part of the deal," she said, flipping toward the back of the file. The loan from Pioneer Atlantic is essentially bridge financing. The primary capital, the $6 million, is coming from a private equity group called Redmont Capital Group. Our role was to secure the land using your guarantee, at which point Redmont's funds would be transferred into the LLC account to begin the development. We were, in effect, verifying your good name so they could move their money. My God, I wasn't just the guarantor for the bank loan. I was the respectable front for a $6 million deal with a mystery group in Florida. I looked at Elena. When this file was submitted, was my husband alone? Elena hesitated, checking her notes. The application was submitted in person in May. Our records indicate Mr. Lawson was present, along with one other individual. Who? She was introduced as his assistant, Elena said, her eyes meeting mine. A Ms. Sienna Blake. Sienna, the redhead, the woman from the food court with the 2 toddlers. He had brought his mistress to the bank to co-sign a fraudulent loan in his wife's name. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of it almost made me laugh. West Orchard Residential Development, I said, the name tasting like poison. He wasn't building a subdivision. He was building her a nest, a $6 million nest, with her 3 kids, and he was using my credit to pay for it. Elena Alvarez, to her credit, looked genuinely appalled. Mrs. Rivera, the bank will cooperate fully. Our fraud department is already handling the internal investigation, but from your end, you need to understand the position this puts you in. Until this is formally reported, you are the sole director of an LLC that has entered into a fraudulent agreement. I understand, I said, my voice hardening. I was done being a victim. The shock was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp rage. I was moving from betrayed wife to plaintiff. I need a complete, certified copy of this entire file, every page. Of course, Elena said, already texting someone on her desk phone. And from this moment, I continued, standing up, you are to have no further contact with Brent Lawson regarding this file. None. Am I clear? All communication regarding Lawson Urban Holdings or this loan will go through my legal counsel. Perfectly clear, Mrs. Rivera. A young man in a suit appeared, took the file, and disappeared to a copy room. While we waited, I stared out the window at the city. I had spent 24 years building a life, a home, a family. I had built a reputation in this community as someone who was responsible, trustworthy. Brent had taken that reputation and tried to leverage it for his own selfish, sordid fantasy. He hadn't just tried to leave me. He had tried to leave me holding the bag, a $6 million bag that, for all I knew, was tied to something far darker than a simple land deal. The man returned with a thick bound copy of the file. I took it. It felt as heavy as a tombstone. Thank you for your time, Elena, I said. I walked out of the bank's marble lobby and into the cold November air. I didn't go home. I didn't go to work. I drove straight to the nearest office supply store. I walked to the back, to the electronics aisle, and purchased a 2-terabyte encrypted external hard drive. I would go to a print shop, scan every single page of the file Elena had given me, and save it. I would save the screenshots of the Chez Pascal receipts, the invoice from the commercial lawyer, the picture of the e-signature from my spam folder. I was building my own file. I sat in my car in the parking lot. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I'd added 6 months ago, a name given to me by a colleague who had gone through a particularly nasty divorce, a just-in-case number I had prayed I would never need. The contact read, D. Rourke, Referrals. I opened a new text message. My thumbs were perfectly steady. Mr. Rourke, my name is Addie Rivera. I need to see you today. I am the victim of significant financial fraud, and I am about to file for divorce. Daniel Rourke's office was the antithesis of the bank, where Pioneer Atlantic was sterile glass and steel. Rourke's space was old money, dark mahogany, leather-bound books, and the faint, reassuring smell of old paper. He hadn't wasted time on pleasantries or condolences. He was tall, thin, and wore a perfectly tailored suit that looked like it cost more than my car. He'd cleared his afternoon calendar after my text, and he looked at me not like a victim, but like a client with a complex problem. I placed the thick bound file from Pioneer Atlantic on his desk. "She gave me a full copy," I said. He put on a pair of thin-rimmed glasses and began to read. He didn't speak for 15 solid minutes. The only sound in the room was the heavy, crisp slide of paper as he turned each page. He read the LLC formation. He studied the loan application. He spent a full minute just staring at the forged signature. I sat there, my adrenaline draining away, leaving a cold, shaky exhaustion in its wake. Finally, he took off his glasses and placed them carefully on the desk. He looked at me, his eyes sharp and analytical. "Well, Mrs. Rivera," he said, his voice calm and precise, "your husband isn't just cheating on you. He's building a legal structure designed specifically for you to be the first person arrested when it collapses." The words hit me harder than the Thanksgiving announcement. "Arrested." He steepled his fingers. "He used your old hyphenated name, which is sloppy, but effective if no one's looking. He used your pristine credit as the bedrock. Most importantly, he made you the sole director of this LLC. This means that when Redmont Capital Group, which I assure you is not some friendly neighborhood investment firm, gets flagged for whatever this $6 million really is, tax evasion, money laundering, who knows, the FBI isn't going to be knocking on Brent's door. They'll be knocking on yours. You are the legal firewall." I felt the blood drain from my face. "So what do I do?" "First," he said, holding up one finger, "we lock your life down. Starting an hour ago, you will call all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You will tell them you are a victim of identity theft, and you will place a full security freeze on your file. Not a fraud alert, Mrs. Rivera, a freeze. Nothing moves in your name, not so much as a department store credit card, without your explicit, verbal consent." He held up a second finger. "Second, I am going to draft a formal, notarized affidavit stating that your signature on this LLC and this loan guarantee is a forgery. We will send that via certified mail, return receipt requested, to Pioneer Atlantic's Chief Compliance Officer and their General Counsel. We are creating an undeniable paper trail that establishes you as a non-participant, a victim, not a co-conspirator." He leaned back in his chair. "Third, and this is the most critical, the house. He wants to sell it," I whispered, the words tasting like defeat. "He announced it at Thanksgiving, to fund his new life with Sienna." "Of course he does," Rourke said, unimpressed. "It's the single largest marital asset. He wants to liquidate it and move the cash to his mistress before you can stop him. We're going to stop him. Today, I am going to draft the paperwork to move the Maplebridge property out of your joint names and into the Addie Rivera Revocable Trust. You will be the sole trustee. Your children, Evan and Lily, will be the beneficiaries. We can legally justify this as an emergency action to protect the primary marital residence from one party's documented fraudulent activities and dissipation of assets. By the time he calls a realtor, the title will be firewalled, completely out of his reach." I took a shaky breath, the first real breath I'd taken in 24 hours. I already did something. At Thanksgiving, after he made his announcement, Rourke raised a single, curious eyebrow. "I found the invoice from his commercial lawyer weeks ago," I explained, "and the Amex statements for Chez Pascal. I put them in an envelope. When he stood up and said he was selling the house for Sienna, I stood up too. I walked into the kitchen, got the envelope, and I placed it on the gravy stain he'd just made. I just told him, 'Since you're issuing press releases, here's my statement.'" A slow, thin smile, devoid of all humor, spread across Daniel Rourke's face. "Mrs. Rivera, you have excellent instincts. You didn't yell. You didn't throw a plate. You presented evidence. You let him know he's been caught, without telling him how caught. Good. Let him sweat. Let him wonder what's in that envelope and how long you've known. In a fight like this, timing isn't just a factor. It's the entire weapon." He leaned forward, and his voice dropped. "Now, about this $6 million, Men who build shell companies in their wives' names to move seven-figure sums from opaque private sources are usually not just hiding assets, they're washing them. This is dangerous. Right now, you are the director of the LLC designed to catch that dirty money. Your only defense is to be the first one to raise the alarm. You must be the one who reports this. You must be the victim who walks into the police station, not the accomplice who gets cornered. So what's our timeline? I asked. I felt less like a wife and more like a general preparing for battle. It's a sequence, he said. 1, we finalize the fraud report with the bank, which you've done. 2, we create the affidavit and the trust, which I'm doing now. 3, my office will run a quiet, deep dive check on Redmont Capital Group. We need to know exactly how dirty this money is. 4, only when the house is secure and we know what we're dealing with, then we file for divorce. And we won't just file. We will file with an emergency motion citing financial fraud, identity theft, and dissipation of marital assets. We will strike first, and we will strike hard. I left his office 2 hours later, my head spinning but my spine made of steel. I drove to a different bank, a small community credit union where I kept a personal account Brent had never known about, holding the small inheritance from my aunt. I rented a new safe deposit box. I spent the afternoon at a copy shop. I meticulously scanned every single page of the file from Elena Alvarez. Then I went home. Brent was out at a site meeting. I went into our home office. I logged onto his computer. I found the West Orchard folder. It was full of architectural drawings for a 5-bedroom modern farmhouse. I found the emails between him and Sienna. I found her social media accounts. I printed everything. Pictures of Sienna, a vibrant redhead in her mid-30s, laughing with her 3 small children, her public Instagram posts. Big moves coming. The kids are so excited to finally have a yard. So grateful for B, making all our dreams come true. I printed screenshots of tagged photos, including one from a charity golf event at Cedar Glen, an event Brent told me he attended alone where his arm was clearly visible wrapped around her waist. I put the new flash drive, all the printouts, and the original copy of the bank file into the safe deposit box. When I got home, I logged into our family's shared accounts. I changed the password to our primary email. I changed the password to our cloud storage, where we kept all our family photos. I went into my phone's settings and, for the first time in a decade, I stopped sharing my location with my husband. One last thing, Rourke had said as I was leaving. Until we file, you are the same woman you were last week. He thinks you're meek. He thinks you're a pushover. He thinks you're hysterical and weak because he's leaving you. Let him. Do not change your routine. Do not let him suspect you've hired me. The more he underestimates you, the harder he will fall. That night, I made soup. I sat on the couch, pretending to read a book. Brent was still distant, still sullen about the Thanksgiving scene, but mostly, he was distracted, his phone buzzing constantly. He was worried, but he thought he was worried about the envelope. He had no idea about the bank or the trust. Around 8 p.m., a video call came in. He answered it, his voice instantly changing, becoming soft and warm, a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Hey there, buddy," he cooed. A child's high-pitched voice came through the speaker. "B, are you coming to our house now? Mommy said we get to see the new house." B, that's what they called him. "Soon, buddy," Brent said, his face transformed by a loving smile I once thought belonged to me. "I promise. Real soon. We're going to have the best house ever. Just like I told you." I looked up from my book. I met his eyes across the living room. I smiled. A small, sad, empty smile. The smile of the wife he thought he was leaving behind. He looked away, annoyed by the interruption, and went back to talking to the child. I turned the page in my book, my heart beating a cold, steady, tactical rhythm. He had no idea what was coming. I went home and pretended to be the woman I had been the day before. I pretended to be the wife grieving a dead marriage, the woman blindsided by a Thanksgiving humiliation, Brent bought it completely. He was alternately sullen and dismissive, moving around the house with the impatient energy of a man waiting for his real life to begin. He was busy, constantly on his phone, fielding calls that he took in the garage or the backyard. His voice a low, anxious murmur. He thought I was weeping. I was not weeping. I was cataloging. Armed with her name, I fell down the rabbit hole of Sienna Blake. The internet is a brutal archivist. It took me less than 30 seconds to find her. Her Facebook and Instagram profiles were public, a curated monument to her new life. She was 34, exactly 10 years younger than me. The picture showed the bright red hair Lily had described, a cascade of fiery curls. She had 3 small children, 2 boys and a girl, all under the age of 6. Her biography listed her as a freelance interior consultant. Her entire feed was a performance of aspirational motherhood, pictures of her children in matching, beige linen outfits, photos of artisanal sourdough bread. Caption: Learned a new skill. Posts about renovating furniture. It was all so wholesome it felt threatening. I scrolled back, my thumb aching, moving through months of her life. I was looking for Brent. He was never fully in a photo. Of course, he was too cowardly, too smart for that. But he wasn't smart enough to erase his own shadow. I found a post from late July, a sun-drenched family picnic at Cedar Glen Lake. The caption read, "A perfect golden afternoon with my little explorers, we are so blessed." In the third photo of the carousel, Sienna was holding up a glass of wine, smiling at the person taking the picture. The shadow falling across the picnic blanket was unmistakable. Tall, broad-shouldered, the familiar outline of my husband. In the next photo, her youngest son, a toddler, was on a swing, his head thrown back in laughter. The hands pushing the swing were cut off, but the shadow of the man pushing him was cast long and undeniable on the wood chips below. Cedar Glen. My stomach clenched. I checked my own calendar for that weekend in July. Brent had told me he was playing in the annual Tee Up for Charity golf tournament for Ridgewell Community Outreach. He had even complained about how hot it was on the back nine. He had lied, using my own organization, my work, as his cover. He wasn't golfing. He was at a picnic, pushing another man's child on a swing. I scrolled forward, then I found the post from 3 weeks ago. It was a picture of her 3 children, standing in a row, holding hands. They were looking up at a large, framed architectural rendering. The caption was explosive in its innocent joy. "Big news, little ones. Mommy and B are building our forever home. Get ready to choose your new rooms." B, the name the child had called him on the video chat. I zoomed in on the photo, my fingers trembling so hard I had to try twice. The drawing was too far away to see the details of the house, but in the lower right-hand corner, in the architect's title block, was a faint line of text. I screenshotted the picture and blew it up until the pixels blurred. The file name was West Orchard Res, the bank file. Project purpose: West Orchard Residential Development, the $6 million loan, the LLC in my name, the forged signature. It was all for this. It was all to build Sienna Blake her forever home. This wasn't just a midlife crisis affair. This was a parallel construction. He was building a new family, a new house, a new life, and he was using my name and my credit as the foundation. This was no longer about infidelity. This was about resource allocation. I logged into our joint checking account, the one I used for groceries and household bills. Brent rarely touched it, or so I thought. He must have assumed I never looked past the running balance. I scrolled back through the transaction history. There, 2 weeks ago, an electronic funds transfer for $2,400 to Little Explorers Daycare. I Googled the name. It was an exclusive, high-end preschool in the Brookmont neighborhood, the exact area his project was located, Sienna's neighborhood. The rage that filled me was cold and pure. Just last month, I had received a panicked call from Lily. Her tuition payment for the spring semester was late, and the university was threatening to drop her from her classes. Brent, who handled the education fund, had brushed it off. "It's just a processing delay." "Addie," he'd snapped. I'll handle it. He had been slow to pay for his own daughter's education, but he was paying his mistress's daycare bills on time, from our joint account. The final piece of his arrogance arrived in our mailbox on Monday. I was sifting through the junk mail and the bills when I saw it. A thick, 9x12 manila envelope from a land surveying company. It wasn't addressed to Brent Lawson. It was addressed to A. Rivera B. Lawson, West Orchard Project. He had used our home address. He was having the legal documents for his fraudulent project, the project he was building for his mistress, mailed to his wife. He was so convinced of my incompetence, so sure I was just the quiet, domestic wallpaper of his life, that he was using me as his unpaid administrative assistant. Evan came by that evening, his face drawn and pale. He was supposed to be studying for finals, but he looked like he hadn't slept since Thanksgiving. "Mom," he said, his voice low, refusing to sit down. I heard him. He was in the study with the door closed. But I heard him. I knew what he was going to say. "He keeps going outside to talk, too." Evan continued, his fists clenched. "He keeps calling someone sweetheart. He was promising them he'd handle Addie, and he was talking about the kids. He said, 'The kids will love the new yard. I promise.' Mom, what is he doing? Who are these people?" I looked at my son, my tall, smart, 23-year-old son, who still looked like a lost little boy. "Evan," I said, putting my hands on his arms, forcing him to meet my eyes. "I need you to listen to me. I know everything, but I am handling it. I need you to go back to Boston. I need you to focus on your finals. Do not engage with him. Do not start a war. Not yet. You have to trust me." He searched my face, looking for the hysterical, broken woman he expected to find. He found something else instead. He nodded, his jaw tight. "Okay, Mom, I trust you." After he left, I sat in the dark living room and it all became clear. This wasn't a man planning to ask for a divorce and divide our assets fairly. This was a predator. He was planning to drain me dry. He was leveraging my perfect credit, my stable name, and my legal signature to build an entire new life. Once the $6 million transfer was complete, once the deeds were signed and the house was built, then he would have announced he was leaving. He would have left me with the shell of a fraudulent LLC in my name, a mountain of debt, and the legal responsibility for his dirty money. He wasn't just leaving me. He was planning to leave me destitute, disgraced, and potentially in prison. The final piece of evidence came from the hard drive I'd copied from his office computer. It was a file I hadn't understood at first. It was a screenshot of a text message exchange, not from Brent's phone. It was a screenshot he had saved, a conversation between Sienna and someone listed in her contacts as Kellen Investor, Sienna. He said the money is scheduled for the Monday after the holiday. "Are you sure the $6 million is enough for phase 1? Kellen, the 6M is contingent on the bank. The bank is contingent on the guarantee. Is his wife solid?" Sienna: "Don't worry about her. Brent said his wife is okay to sign. He told me she signed everything last week." I stared at the words. Brent, Sienna, this mystery investor, their entire plan, the house, the LLC, the $6 million, the future he had promised his new family, it all balanced on a single, fraudulent point. It all depended on my signature, the one thing he didn't have, the one thing he had to forge. His entire, elaborate, multi-million-dollar betrayal depended on a lie. He was promising them all the one card he didn't actually hold. 2 days. For 2 days. The house sat in a state of suspended animation. The Thanksgiving leftovers lay untouched in the refrigerator. Mocking me. Evan and Lily had taken refuge at a friend's house, their texts a constant. Painful refrain. "Are you okay, Mom?" Brent was a ghost in his own home. He stayed in his study, the door closed, his voice a low, constant, angry murmur into his phone. He was furious about the envelope, but his fury was blunted by sheer, pants-wetting terror. He didn't know what I knew, or how I knew it. He just knew the game had changed. He thought I was broken. He thought I was in our bedroom, weeping into a pillow, the stereotypical wronged wife. He mistook my silence for grief. He mistook my strategy for surrender. On Saturday night, I decided it was time to apply pressure. I sent a group text to Brent, Evan, and Lily. We didn't finish our meal. Since you are both still in town, I am expecting you for dinner, 7 p.m. Evan and Lily agreed immediately. They thought they were coming to protect me. Brent, however, clearly misinterpreted the summons. He emerged from his study an hour before, showered, shaved, and wearing one of his new, expensive shirts. He looked relieved. He thought this was it, my emotional, hysterical outburst was over, and I was now ready to sit down and listen to his reasonable, logical terms of surrender. He thought I was calling the children back to be his audience, to witness my formal capitulation. He was radiating a smug, condescending confidence that made my skin crawl. We sat down at the same dining room table. I'd reheated the turkey and the stuffing. It tasted like cardboard. The silence was heavier this time, amplified by the clinking of silverware on my grandmother's china. Brent, ever the boardroom executive, decided to chair the meeting. He set his fork down, dabbed his mouth with a napkin, and adopted his "let's be rational" tone. "I'm glad we're all here," he began, looking at Evan and Lily. He refused to look at me. Thursday was unfortunate. My timing was off. I recognize that. But the substance of my announcement remains. I wanted to explain my decision-making process, since your mother reacted in such a theatrical way. Evan started to speak, but I put a hand on his arm. I shook my head. Just once. Not yet. "The fact is," Brent continued, leaning back, "this house is our single biggest asset. The market in Maplebridge is at an all-time high. It would be fiscally irresponsible, frankly, not to sell right now and capitalize on the equity." He finally turned his gaze on me. It was pure, unfiltered condescension. "I will, of course. Make sure you're taken care of. Addie, we will find you a very nice, smaller condo, something appropriate, more manageable for you to handle on your own. And yes," he said, turning back to the kids, "I am moving in with Sienna. She's a wonderful, supportive woman, and her children. Her 3 children need a stable father figure. They need me, and I'm stepping up to provide that for them." Evan's fork dropped. It didn't clatter. It hit the plate with a dead, final thud. "You're actually kidding me," Evan said, his voice a low, dangerous shake. "You're doubling down on this." "Evan, this is an adult conversation," Brent said, his calm mask slipping. "No, this is my conversation," Evan shot back, standing up. "You are leaving Mom. She is 44 years old. You are leaving your wife of 24 years to go and raise someone else's toddlers." "You don't understand the situation," Brent snapped. "I understand," Evan yelled, his face crimson. "I understand that you blew up our entire family. I understand that you're trying to kick Mom out of her home." "This marriage has been dead for years," Brent roared, finally dropping the corporate facade. "You kids have no idea. Your mother and I, we've been roommates, nothing more, for a decade." Lily, who had been trembling silently, finally broke. A gut-wrenching sob tore out of her. "But the house," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, this is our home. This is where we grew up. You always said you would never sell this house. You said it was for us. For your grandkids one day." Brent sighed, a sound of pure exasperation. He was annoyed by her tears. He looked at her like she was a faulty piece of equipment. "Lily, for God's sake, don't be sentimental. It's an asset. It's just bricks and mortar. I am simply restructuring our assets to reflect the new reality." I had been silent. I had been watching. I let him hang himself with his own words. Now, I moved. I set my own fork down, very gently. I looked up from my plate, my gaze landing on his. "Restructuring our assets," I repeated. My voice was dangerously quiet. Cutting through the emotional wreckage, it sounded almost academic. That's an interesting phrase. Brent? I leaned forward just an inch. This restructuring you're planning. In whose name are you restructuring these assets? The room went completely and totally still. The blood drained from Brent's face. He froze, his mouth slightly open. He stared at me as if he'd never seen me before. This was not the weepy, hysterical wife. This was not the woman who managed community bake sales. This was not the roommate he'd dismissed. This was a cold, specific, legal question. This question, combined with the envelope he'd been agonizing over for 2 days, told him he was in a different kind of trouble. He just gaped. Evan, seeing his father's sudden terror, stopped yelling. He looked at me, then at Brent, sensing the shift in power. "I'm done," Evan said, his voice flat with disgust. He pushed his chair back, the legs screaming against the hardwood floor. "I am done listening to this. I'm done with you." He grabbed Lily's arm. "Come on, Lil. We're leaving. Now." They were gone 30 seconds later. The front door slammed shut, a sound that echoed through the house like a gunshot. I sat there in the sudden silence. Daniel Rourke's voice was in my head. He is creating an unstable environment. Brent had just confirmed it, in front of witnesses. I stood up and began clearing the plates. My hands were perfectly steady. Brent followed me into the kitchen, his panic now curdling into rage. "What the hell was that? Addie?" he hissed, grabbing my arm. I flinched, but not because I was scared. I saw him coming. I set the plates down hard by the sink. As I turned, I pulled my phone from my back pocket. My thumb found the voice memo app. I pressed the red button. I set the phone, screen down, on the granite counter, partially hidden by the wooden fruit bowl. "What was what? Brent?" I asked, turning on the water, my back to him. "You know what? In whose name? That little performance you're trying to sabotage me. After everything I'm doing to make this clean to protect you. Protect me." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Yes, I'm just trying to get the money squared away. It's just paperwork. It's a formality to protect the new investment, to get the funds in place for Sienna's house. You have no idea what you're messing with." "Got it." I turned off the water. I turned to face him, letting the mask of the broken wife fall back into place. I summoned the tears I had refused to shed on Thanksgiving. "I can't," I whispered, my voice trembling. I can't talk about this anymore tonight. Brent, please, you've destroyed us. Just leave me alone. We can talk tomorrow." He stared at me, his fists clenched. He was frustrated by my emotional weakness, but it was a weakness he understood. It was a weakness he counted on. He thought he still had time to manage me. "Fine," he spat. "Fine. Wallow in it. I'll handle it myself." He stormed out of the kitchen and back into his study. I waited until I heard his door click shut. I picked up my phone. I pressed stop. The recording was 2 minutes and 16 seconds long. I opened a new email. To D. Rourke. Subject Saturday night exhibit. I attached the audio file. My message was brief. "He just admitted on tape that he's moving marital assets to her to fund her new house. He called it a formality. This should help. Addie." I sent it. I walked back into the dining room. It was a complete wreck. Half-eaten plates of cold, congealed food, overturned water glasses, crumpled napkins dropped on the floor. It was the aftermath of a war. I looked at the devastation, the ghost of the family I had spent 2 decades building. It's come to this. The weekend was a cold war. Brent stayed in his study, the door shut, while I moved through the house like a ghost, packing away my grandmother's china. Every clink of glass felt like a small, final punctuation mark. Daniel Rourke's office had sent the trust documents via secure courier. I had them signed, notarized, and filed with the county registrar before Brent even finished his morning coffee on Monday. The house was safe. Now, I had to save myself. The call came Monday afternoon. I was at my desk at Ridgewell, trying to focus on a grant proposal, when my private cell phone rang. It was an unknown number, but not the same one from the bank. Addie Rivera speaking. Mrs. Rivera, this is Mark Jenkins with the Senior Compliance and Risk Division at Pioneer Atlantic Bank. I'm following up on the file opened by Ms. Alvarez on Friday. His voice was not reassuring like Elena's. It was hard, fast, and held zero warmth. This was not a customer service call. Yes, Mr. Jenkins, I'm familiar with the file. Ma'am, our internal review has flagged the originating source of the incoming funds, the $6 million from Redmont Capital Group in Florida. My knuckles went white on the edge of my desk. This is a small, newly formed entity, he continued, his words clipped. And the money's path is circuitous. It involves several offshore transfers. Frankly, it has triggered multiple federal reporting requirements. I see, I managed to say. Here is the bank's position. Mrs. Rivera, he said, and all pretense of politeness vanished. You are the sole director of the LLC designated to receive these funds. As of this moment, your name is on the preliminary SAR suspicious activity report that we are legally obligated to file. I couldn't breathe. But I told Ms. Alvarez the signature is a forgery. The entire LLC is fraudulent. We have Ms. Alvarez's report. Yes, we also have a signed loan guarantee and corporate articles bearing your name, which you have not yet formally and legally contested. You have told us it's a forgery. You have not told the federal government. As it stands, if those funds attempt to land and you have not taken official action, you will not be viewed as a victim. You will be viewed as the primary and potentially the only co-conspirator. Do you understand me? I understood perfectly. Brent wasn't just hiding behind my good credit. He was hiding behind me. He had built a legal cage and locked me inside it, and the tigers were now approaching. He knew this money was dirty. He had made me, Addie Rivera, the community outreach manager, the official money launderer. What do I need to do? My voice was a whisper. You need to have your attorney file a formal, notarized affidavit of forgery with our legal department immediately, not tomorrow, today. If you claim you are a victim of identity theft, you need to file a police report to that effect. Otherwise, we have no choice but to proceed as if you are the willful director of Lawson Urban Holdings. The bank must protect itself. Mrs. Rivera. We will be freezing this account and the associated loan, pending that official documentation. I hung up the phone, my entire body shaking. I immediately called Daniel Rourke. He's right, Daniel said, his voice grim. The bank is running for cover. They're about to throw you under the bus to save themselves. That affidavit I drafted, I'm sending a courier to your office. Sign it, get it notarized at the front desk. Send it back to me. I will have it on Mark Jenkins' desk by 5 p.m. He said I should file a police report. Yes, Daniel said, and we will, but not at the front desk of the local precinct. We do this surgically. I have a call in to a former colleague in the white-collar crimes division at the county prosecutor's office. We are going to hand-deliver our evidence to them, presenting you as a cooperating victim of financial identity theft. We control the narrative. We give them the criminal, Brent, gift-wrapped. After the call, I sat at my desk, paralyzed. My mind raced. Evidence. He needs more evidence. I pulled up the shared drive on my office computer, the one Brent thought he'd locked me out of. He had changed the password, but he'd forgotten the recovery question. What was the name of your first pet? It was Skipper, a golden retriever we'd gotten the year we were married. His arrogance made him sloppy. I went straight to his sent items. He was in a full-blown panic. The emails were flying. He was writing to Sienna, to the mystery investor Kellen, to the architect, to Sienna. Honey, just a small delay at the bank. The wire is taking longer than expected. That compliance guy is just an idiot. Tell the kids to keep picking out their paint colors. I'll have the keys in hand soon. I promise. To Kellen Redmont Capital. We have a temporary snag. Just a signature verification. My wife is being difficult, but I will handle her. The money is safe. The account is secure. Tell your people to stand down. To the architect for West Orchard Res. We must halt all invoices. Hold on the new blueprints. We have a temporary capital flow issue that I'm resolving. And then, the one that made my blood run cold. An email from Brent to Sienna. Sent 2 weeks ago. The one I'd missed. It's done. Addie signed everything this morning. She's on board. The money will be here Monday. I printed every single email. I shoved them into my bag. He was lying. He was lying to all of them. He was lying to his mistress, to his shady partners, and to me. He was juggling live grenades, and I was the one who would be left in the blast radius. The pressure wasn't just coming from the bank, it was coming from his new life. Sienna's texts, which he'd left open on his laptop screen sharing app, were growing more insistent. Sienna. Brent, the daycare bill is late again. You said you'd handle it. Sienna. I told the designer we'd have the deposit today. What's the holdup? Sienna. The kids have already picked out their rooms. Brent, you promised them. I'm not looking like a liar to my children because your wife is having a breakdown. He was being squeezed from all sides. He was desperate, and a desperate man is a dangerous man. It hit me then. A realization so sharp it hurt. I had to act before that $6 million touched my name. If that wire transfer was even attempted and I hadn't filed a report, I would be implicated. The delay at the bank was my only window. I had to slam that window shut. On his fingers. I called Daniel Rourke back. He's desperate. Daniel. He's lying to his investors. He's going to try to force this through. He's going to come to me and try to make me sign. For real this time. Or forge it again. Daniel was silent for a moment. Then we take away his leverage. We end this. He's trying to handle you, right? Let's give him the chance. What do you mean? I'm going to call Mr. Jenkins at the bank, Daniel said, his voice suddenly infused with a predator's calm. I am going to suggest a final meeting to resolve this. We need to verify the signatures. Man to man. Face to face. We will request a meeting at the bank. You, me, Brent, and Mr. Jenkins. We will get Brent in that room, on the bank's territory, and we will confront him with the forged documents in front of a bank compliance officer. He'll never come, I said. He'll know it's a trap. No, he won't, Daniel said. He'll think it's his last chance. He'll think he can still talk his way out of it. He'll think he can manipulate you, his hysterical wife, into cooperating one last time. He'll think he's walking in to handle you. He won't realize he's walking into his own execution. Okay, I said, my heart hammering. Okay, set it up. Good. The meeting will be tomorrow. Now, Addie, this is the most important part. You go home. You say nothing. You let him believe he is still in control. You let him think he still has time. I agreed. I went home, and I was silent. The next morning, I dressed for a funeral. I wore a severe black sheath dress and my highest heels. I did my makeup with surgical precision. I was not a wife. I was not a victim. I was the sole director of Lawson Urban Holdings, and I was going to liquidate my position. The glass-walled conference room at Pioneer Atlantic was just as I'd left it, only colder. Elena Alvarez was there, her face a polite, professional mask. Beside her sat Mark Jenkins, the compliance officer. His face was not polite. At the head of the table, a large television screen was lit, displaying a live video feed of Daniel Rourke, sitting in his own mahogany office, a stack of files in front of him. I sat down opposite Jenkins. We waited. At 10:03 a.m., the door opened, and Brent bustled in. He was wearing his best navy blue suit, the one he called his closing suit. He was radiating impatient confidence. He had clearly rehearsed his part. He thought he was walking in to handle me, to soothe the ruffled feathers of the bankers, and walk out with his $6 million prize. Elena, Mark, good to see you, he boomed. Taking the last empty chair, he nodded curtly at me. Addie, he glanced at the television screen. And who's this? That is my legal counsel, Daniel Rourke, I said. Brent's smile faltered. He looked at the screen, then at Jenkins. "Counsel for a signature verification, isn't that a little dramatic? Addie, we're all busy people here." Mark Jenkins did not smile. He slid a single stack of papers to the center of the table. It was the LLC operating agreement and the loan guarantee. "Mr. Lawson, we've called this meeting to resolve a significant discrepancy," Jenkins said, his voice flat. "Mrs. Rivera, we presented these documents to you on Friday. Can you please, for the record, confirm your position?" Brent was already opening his mouth, no doubt to explain the situation for me. I held up a hand, silencing him. I did not look at the papers. I looked directly into my husband's eyes. "That is not my signature," I said, my voice ringing with clarity in the small, sterile room. "I did not authorize this loan. I did not authorize the formation of this LLC. I have never heard of Lawson Urban Holdings, and I have never, in any capacity, done business with a group called Redmont Capital." The silence that followed was absolute. Brent's face went from confident to confused to a dark, mottled red. What are you talking about, Addie? This is just a misunderstanding. We talked about this." "No, Brent," I said. "We never talked about this." Elena Alvarez, who had been watching me, now turned her cold, banker's gaze on my husband. "Mr. Lawson, if what Mrs. Rivera is stating is true, it means you have used your wife's identity and personal credit to secure a commercial loan without her authorization. That is bank fraud." Brent tried to laugh. It was a horrible, strangled sound. "Fraud? Don't be ridiculous. She's my wife. She's emotional. She's upset about other things. It's marital property, a simple formality to move the project forward. She verbally agreed." "It is not a formality, Mr. Lawson," Daniel Rourke's voice boomed from the speakers, sharp and commanding. Brent's head whipped toward the screen. "Mr. Rourke, this is a private family matter." Brent spat. "No, Mr. Lawson, it is a criminal one," Rourke retorted. "A shell corporation formed without the director's knowledge, and a multi-million-dollar commercial loan, guaranteed by a forged signature, require explicit, witnessed, notarized consent, verbal agreement, even if it had occurred, is irrelevant and, in this case, a demonstrable lie. We have witnesses, your own children, to whom you announced your intention to divert marital assets to a third party." Brent was speechless, his mouth opening and closing. "Furthermore," Rourke continued, "as of 5 p.m. yesterday, the legal department of Pioneer Atlantic Bank, as well as the Maplebridge County Prosecutor's Office, is in receipt of a sworn, notarized affidavit of forgery, signed by my client. We have formally attested that this is a case of financial identity theft." At that exact moment, as the words identity theft hung in the air, Brent's phone, which he had placed face up on the polished table, buzzed. The screen lit up. The call was from Sienna. Brent lunged for it, a desperate, reflexive movement. "Mr. Lawson, please." Elena's voice was sharp. She held up one, perfectly manicured hand. "Please leave your phone on the table. This is a formal meeting. We are not to be interrupted." Brent froze, his hand hovering over the phone. He stared at it as the call went to voicemail. He looked like a cornered animal. Mark Jenkins cleared his throat, pulling Brent's terrified gaze back to him. "Given Mrs. Rivera's formal affidavit and the questionable nature of the $6 million transfer from Redmont Capital, Pioneer Atlantic is officially denying this loan application. The LLC account is permanently frozen, effective immediately. We are closing this file." He paused, letting the words land. "And as we are legally obligated to do, we are filing a full report on this suspicious activity and the fraudulent application with the federal regulators. We are done here." As if on cue, Brent's phone buzzed again and again. A string of text messages began to light up the screen. "Sienna. Brent, call me." "Sienna. The bank just called the architect. What is going on?" "Sienna. Is the house ours or not?" Brent's composure, the corporate mask he had worn for 24 years, completely shattered. He turned to me, his face a mask of purple rage, his eyes wild with sheer panic. He was no longer a businessman. He was a trapped rat. He leaned across the table, his voice a low, venomous hiss. You did this. You are destroying me. You are destroying everything I've built. I leaned forward, closing the distance between us until we were inches apart. I looked into the eyes of the man I had loved, the man who had tried to sign my life away. "No, Brent," I whispered, my voice as cold and hard as the marble in the lobby. "I'm just removing my name from everything you've destroyed." His phone lit up again. Sienna. "Brent, you promised my kids. You promised me. Call me now." He could only stare at it, his face ashen, his hands trembling. He had no answer. He had nothing left. Brent didn't even wait for me to get home. He was in the driveway when I pulled in, his face a grotesque mask of fury and panic. He followed me into the kitchen, the scene of our first confrontation. "You need to fix this," he hissed, his voice trembling. He was cornered, and it made him pathetic. "There is nothing for me to fix. Brent, you created this. You don't understand." He was practically pleading, grabbing a stack of papers from his briefcase. "This isn't just about me. This is about them, the investors. You have to sign this. It's a power of attorney. It just lets me go back to the bank and clean this up. I'll tell them you were confused. I'll smooth it over." He was asking me to legally authorize his fraud. After the fact, he was asking me to hand him the gun he'd just tried to shoot me with. I pulled my phone from my bag, my thumb already on the voice memo app. "You want me to sign a legal document right now?" I asked, setting the phone on the counter. "Screen down." I let my voice shake, just a little. "After you just humiliated me in front of those bankers." "Addie, listen to me," he said, moving closer, trying to adopt his old, reassuring tone. It sounded grotesque. "This is just paperwork. It's just a formality to move the assets. If you don't sign this, if we don't fix this today, they are going to come after me, after us." "Who, Brent?" I asked, feigning confusion. "Who is coming after us?" "The investors." "Redmont, you have no idea what these people are like. This is $6 million of their money, and you just froze it. You just told the bank it was dirty." "You mean you told the bank?" I said. "When you used my name to launder it?" His face contorted. "I'm trying to save this family. I'm trying to protect our assets." "You mean Sienna's assets?" I shot back. He stared at me, defeated. He grabbed the POA and slammed his hand on the counter. "You are making a terrible mistake." I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. "No, Brent. My mistake was trusting you." His counterattack wasn't just on me. He tried to get to the kids, to poison them, to use them as leverage. He called Evan and Lily that afternoon, and from their horrified replies, I pieced together his narrative. He told me I was a fool, Evan told me on the phone later, his voice simmering with rage. He said, "Your mother is being hysterical, and she's going to make us all broke." He said it was just some simple paperwork, and that I needed to talk some sense into her. "He told me the same thing," Lily whispered, her voice thick with tears. "He said Mom was letting her emotions ruin a major business deal. A business deal, Dad." I asked him, "Who is Sienna?" And he just hung up on me. Brent was losing his allies, and his creditors were closing in. I was in my office, copying the new audio file for Daniel, when I heard Brent shouting from his study. The door was closed, but his voice was high-pitched with terror. "Caleb, just listen to me. It's a misunderstanding, my wife. She's just upset. She's filing for divorce. You know how it is. She doesn't mean it. I can get her to retract the affidavit. Just give me 48 hours. There was a long pause. I could faintly hear a cold, deep voice on the other end. "What do you mean?" "That's not how this works." Brent's voice cracked. No, Caleb, you can't. If you report that, it's over. I can fix it. Just, just tell them the money is clean. I'll get her signature." Another pause. "Caleb, Caleb." He burst out of his study, his face ashen. He saw me standing in the hallway. He didn't say a word. He just walked straight out the front door, got in his car, and sped away. The next morning, I met Daniel at the Maple Bridge County Courthouse. We weren't there for the divorce. We were at the prosecutor's office. We sat in a small, quiet room with a woman from the white-collar crime unit. I handed her the new flash drive. It contained everything. The original bank file, the audio recording of Brent admitting to moving assets, the audio recording of him trying to coerce me into signing a POA, the screenshots of his emails to Sienna, the text messages, my affidavit of forgery. I, Addie Rivera, was formally reporting a crime, and I was handing them the perpetrator. The pressure on Brent was coming from all sides. His new life was disintegrating before he could even move into it. Sienna, who had been promised a $6 million dream home, was apparently not enjoying the reality of her complicit boyfriend. He must have used his work computer in his panic, because a new email, accidentally forwarded to our shared family account, landed in my inbox. It was from Brent, with his official work signature, sent to Sienna's personal email. The subject line was, "Stop calling me." The body of the email was pure, unfiltered panic. "Sienna, you are making this worse. You have to stop texting me about the house. You don't understand the trouble I'm in. My wife has gone insane. I'm handling it. Just shut up and let me work. If you call my investors again, I swear to God." I forwarded it to Daniel with a single word, "more." I also took a step to protect my own world. I scheduled a meeting with the director at Ridgewell Community Outreach. I laid out the basics. "I am in the middle of a difficult divorce," I explained, "and I have become the victim of a significant financial identity theft, perpetrated by my husband. I have filed a formal report with the prosecutor's office. I am telling you this because my name is unfortunately tied to his fraudulent business, and I wanted you to hear it from me." My boss, a smart woman I had worked with for a decade, simply nodded. "Addie, thank you for telling us. You are a victim. The organization will support you in any way we can." That afternoon, Daniel called. "It's done," he said. "The divorce petition is filed. It's on record, complete with the emergency motion citing financial fraud. The judge has already signed a temporary restraining order, freezing all marital assets, including his personal accounts. He can't move a dime. And Addie? The trust is ironclad. Your case for this house is not just strong, it's absolute. He has nothing." The news must have hit Brent's lawyer immediately, that evening. He came back. He didn't use his key. He rang the doorbell. When I opened it, the man from the bank was gone. The angry, panicked man from the study was gone. In his place was a shell. He looked old, and small, and utterly broken. "Addie," he whispered, "please, I just got the call from my lawyer. A restraining order. Fraud, Addie. You can't." I just looked at him. "I'll stop it," he said, the words tumbling out. I'll end it. With Sienna. It was a mistake. I'll tell her it's over. We can pull the money back. We can fix this. Just call your lawyer. Tell him to drop the petition." He was offering to break up with his mistress, as if that would fix the felony he'd committed. "It's too late for that. Brent," I said, my voice quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. What do you mean? We can go to therapy." "It's too late," I repeated. "The prosecutor's office is convening a preliminary grand jury. This week. It's out of my hands now." His face, which I thought couldn't get any whiter, turned the color of wet cement. A grand jury. The word, the criminal implications, finally landed. He understood. He was still stammering, trying to form a word. When his phone buzzed in his pocket, he pulled it out, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it. He stared at the screen. It was a text. From Caleb. My people just got a call from the feds. They're asking about Lawson Urban Holdings. If your wife has testified, if her name is on a report, I can't protect you. You're on your own. Brent, don't ever call this number again." He looked up from the phone, his eyes empty, uncomprehending. He had lost the bank. He had lost his mistress. He had lost his children. And now, he had lost his protection. He was alone. The bank called the final meeting. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. They didn't book the small glass conference room this time. We were directed to the 32nd floor, to a massive, sterile boardroom that smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and old money. The air was thin, the view of Maplebridge absolute. When I walked in, Brent was already there. He wasn't sitting at the table. He was standing by the window, his back to the door, a shrunken, hollowed-out version of the man I had married. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. I wasn't alone. Daniel Rourke had insisted that Evan and Lily come. "They need to hear the truth from an objective third party," he'd said over the phone. "They need to see, in a room full of lawyers, exactly what he did. It's the only way he can never poison them against you later." So my children walked in with me. Evan, his face set in stone, sat on my left. Lily, pale and trembling, sat on my right, her hand immediately finding mine under the table. At the head of the table sat Mark Jenkins, the compliance officer, and two other people in dark suits who introduced themselves as the bank's legal counsel. Daniel Rourke was, as before, present on the large video screen. Mr. Lawson, the lead lawyer, a man named Davies, began. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He was reading from a prepared report. "We are here to finalize the bank's findings and close this file before handing it over to the regulatory bodies. I will summarize the timeline of events for the record." Brent didn't turn around. He just stared out the window. "1," Davies said, his voice a dull monotone. "On April 17th of this year, an entity, Lawson Urban Holdings, LLC, was formed, listing Mrs. Addie Rivera as the sole director and officer. We have confirmation from the state that this was filed without her knowledge or consent. 2. On May 3rd, Mr. Brent Lawson and an associate, Ms. Sienna Blake, entered this bank and applied for a commercial line of credit in the LLC's name. This application was secured by a personal guarantee, utilizing a forged signature of the listed director, Mrs. Rivera. 3. The purpose of this loan was to act as a bridge for an incoming wire transfer of $6 million from a private entity, Redmont Capital Group, which our compliance department has since flagged for multiple federal reporting triggers related to suspicious and circuitous sourcing. Davies paused, looking up from his paper. "In short, Mr. Lawson, you used your wife's stolen identity to create a shell company, forged her signature to secure a loan, and attempted to use this bank to launder $6 million in questionable funds. Is that an accurate summary?" Brent still didn't move. "He's not denying it," Daniel Rourke's voice boomed from the screen. "And for the bank's report, I would like to add the audio evidence of motive. This was not a simple act of fraud. This was a willful and planned diversion of marital assets to a third party. Please play the file dated Saturday, November 27th. A technician hit a key, and Brent's voice, captured in my kitchen, filled the silent, expensive room. It was panicked, whiny, and crystal clear. "It's just paperwork. It's just a formality to move the assets, to get the funds in place for Sienna's house." Lily's hand crushed mine. She let out a small, choked sound. Evan shot up from his chair so fast it almost toppled over. "You piece of—" "Evan," I said, my voice sharp, commanding. He stopped, his whole body shaking, his eyes locked on his father's back. "Sit down. He is not worth the energy. Sit down." Evan stared at me, his chest heaving, and then, slowly, he sat. I was the only one left standing. I looked at the back of my husband's head. He finally turned around. His face was a ruin. His eyes were red, empty, and pleading. He looked at me, a desperate, Silent appeal. The last flicker of the hope that his hysterical wife would somehow save him. I gave him nothing. "You didn't just cheat, Brent," I said, my voice low and steady. It carried across the room. "The affair, that was just insulting. But this is unforgivable." I took a step toward him. "You looked at my name, the name I built in this community for 24 years, the name I used to run programs for seniors and children, the name that stands for trust and stability, and you decided it was the perfect shield for your dirty hands. You didn't just betray our marriage. You tried to make me the criminal. You tried to hand me the bill for your new life and leave me to rot in a prison cell. That is the truth." "The bank's report will reflect that conclusion," Mr. Davies said, nodding. "Mrs. Rivera is the primary victim and whistleblower. We are cooperating fully with the prosecutor's office. You are not, and have never been, a target of our investigation. Ma'am, you are clear." Lily, her voice barely a whisper, looked at Davies. "So, the house, our house, does he get to sell it?" Brent's head snapped up. It was the only question he still cared about. Davies looked at his file. "The house was never part of this transaction. The bank had no lien on your personal property, only on the assets of the fraudulent LLC. And as of Monday morning," Daniel Rourke cut in, "the Maplebridge property is held in irrevocable trust in Mrs. Rivera's name, with Evan and Lily as the sole beneficiaries. It is completely legally and permanently untouchable by Mr. Lawson or any of his creditors." That was the last shot. Brent didn't just flinch. He collapsed. He physically sagged, his legs seeming to give way as he fell into the chair by the window. He put his head in his hands. It was over. He had lost the house. He had lost the money. He fumbled in his pocket for his phone, his hands shaking violently. He pulled it up, his thumb mashing the screen. He put it to his ear. We could all hear the tinny sound of it ringing. Once, twice, then a click. She had hung up on him, or blocked him. It didn't matter. He stared at the blank screen, his face a mask of utter desolation. "Mr. Lawson," Daniel Rourke said, his voice devoid of pity. "One final piece of business." A notification pinged on Brent's phone. "You have just received the final, non-negotiable marital settlement agreement. It's quite simple. Mrs. Rivera retains the primary residence and all its contents. The children's education trusts remain untouched, under her sole control. You will assume full, sole, and complete responsibility for all debts, liabilities, and legal consequences associated with Lawson Urban Holdings, Redmont Capital, and any subsequent state or federal investigations. You have nothing left to negotiate with. You will sign it today." Brent stared at the phone. He looked at me. He looked at his children. He had no money, no mistress, no house, and a grand jury on his calendar. He had no choice. He gave a single, hollow nod. I didn't wait to watch him sign. I stood up. I smoothed my dress. I looked at my children. My beautiful, strong, resilient children. "Evan, Lily, let's go." I turned, and I walked out of that boardroom. I didn't look back. We walked down the hall, into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing him in his tomb. We rode down 32 floors in complete silence. The elevator doors opened to the main lobby. We walked across the cold marble floor and pushed through the heavy glass doors. The November air was cold, but the sun was bright, sharp, and clean. I took a deep breath. I looked at Evan. I looked at Lily, and I smiled. We're going home. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from today? Let me know in the comments so we can connect. And please share your thoughts on what happened. Make sure to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories and like this video. And if you want to support more stories like this one, please hit that hype button. It really helps this story get heard by more people.